You ever read a story that sounds impossible, but somehow all the pieces fit together? That's where we are with the talk about Tupac Shakur, Jay-Z, Diddy, and the FBI. This is not another random internet rumor about a rapper spotted somewhere. It feels like the closing move in a complicated game that's been running for decades. If even part of it is true, it could change how people remember a whole era of music. Start with the most famous part, Tupac. Most of us grew up with the story that he was shot in Las Vegas in 1996, taken to a hospital, and died days later. That version became the accepted truth. Still, many things about that night have always felt off to some people. Reports from the time have odd gaps. Witnesses vanished. Someone who claimed to have handled his remains reportedly left their job and never spoke again. Those holes made people wonder. Now jump ahead to today. Diddy's businesses and reputation are under intense pressure. There are criminal cases, sealed court papers, and civil suits. Names once untouchable are being mentioned in filings that used to be private. Jay-Z, for years seen almost above scandal, is now named in legal papers and whispers. Their public images, the parties, the awards, the record deals, feel suddenly fragile. And then this rumor shows up. The FBI has found Tupac. Not to put him in handcuffs, but because he might have information. That claim flips the script. Instead of a dead legend coming back, the idea is that Tupac might have been hidden on purpose, not running from justice, but quietly gathering proof, documents, tapes, phone logs. Evidence that, according to those making the claim, links Diddy and Jay-Z to the Las Vegas shooting in ways nobody expected. Some of the talk even suggests that the FBI has started to match old sealed records with new material that allegedly came from people close to Tupac. People inside law enforcement say that files from the 1990s are being re-examined. Old photos and surveillance might be getting run through modern tools. Some insiders claim agents contacted people linked to Tupac to try to understand what they had. If those reports are correct, investigators are not chasing fantasies, they're following leads that might change old conclusions. What would it mean if Tupac really is alive and holding proof? That's the big question. Picture someone who watched their friends become famous and wealthy while staying silent. If that silence helped others rise, and if private records show they gained from what happened, a lot of people would feel betrayed. The return of such proof would not be about music only. It would be about justice, money, reputation, and truth. Think about the kinds of claims being floated. Diddy faces heavy federal charges in the current headlines, which has fueled a lot of speculation. For years, he was the icon of lavish parties and power, white outfits, private islands, helicopters, A-list guests. Now he sits under serious legal pressure. The stories that once read like extravagance now look like cautionary tales. Jay-Z's situation is different, but still serious. He isn't in handcuffs, but civil lawsuits and sealed affidavits have put his name where it was rarely seen before. People are digging into old business moves and financial trails. Some allege phone records and money transfers line up in strange ways. Those are allegations and must be treated as such, but they have people looking closely at things previously accepted without question. The Havana story is one of the more dramatic pieces in these conversations. For years, people whispered that Tupac had been seen in Cuba, at markets, in nightclubs, or in blurry photos. Those rumors were dismissed or laughed at. Then, a former bodyguard claimed to have audio and video that show Cuban leaders offering refuge. He also described an escape plan with lookalikes, bribed hospital staff, and a secret flight from a Caribbean airstrip. The whole thing sounds like a movie, but it's also the sort of plot someone as focused and strategic as Tupac might have pulled off if he wanted to disappear. That last point matters because Tupac was more than a performer. He read widely, he worked through ideas, he studied strategy. His later stage name, inspired by an Italian strategist, often looked less like a costume and more like a manifesto. He talked about outsmarting opponents and sometimes hinted at dramatic moves in records and interviews. Those hints now get reread as possible clues rather than poetic lines. If any of this is true, the fallout would be enormous. It wouldn't only affect two high-profile men. It could reach producers, managers, label executives, lawyers, and assistants, anyone who knew pieces of the truth. People who once seemed invincible could find their careers and reputations unraveling. Contracts, endorsements, and honors could be pulled back. Stories that shaped an entire generation might suddenly be questioned. Here's another layer: the alleged tapes and recordings. Some people claim that Diddy controlled damaging material, recordings that could destroy reputations. Blackmail is the word that keeps cropping up in the conversations. If those tapes exist and tie certain music world figures to criminal acts, a single revelation could topple long careers and change public memory. That fear explains the sudden scrambling. Assistants leave, lawyers get involved, and people change phone numbers. Private jets ferry executives under cover of night. Former insiders who had stayed silent for decades now hire counsel and prepare for the possibility that their names will come up in court. Quiet subpoenas, deleted social posts, and closed accounts hint at pressure behind the scenes. Rumors of plea deals and cooperation circulate. The industry that once celebrated wealth and triumph now braces for disclosures. The role of the FBI in all this is central to the story people tell. If the Bureau is indeed reopening files, it is looking at financial documents, phone traffic, and old surveillance with new tools. That is plausible in many long-running investigations. But remember, these are reports and claims. They are not proof. The mere possibility of federal interest is enough to change behavior, though. When agents show renewed attention, reputations tremble. And then there's the emotional side. Imagine being Tupac, watching friends and rivals build empires while you step back. If a man felt betrayed and then held proof of that betrayal, his motives could be complicated: revenge, correction of the record, or seeking justice. Whatever the driving force, the idea of a carefully planned response, slow, patient, and precise, is chilling to many people involved. What would this mean for fans? For people who grew up admiring these artists, the truth could be hard to accept. Some might feel betrayed and walk away. Others could rationalize or refuse to believe anything that tarnishes their heroes. The cultural impact would be big. Entire narratives about success, resilience, and achievement might be stained. Awards, documentaries, and tributes might look different when re-examined through this new lens. There's also the question of how the music world itself would respond. Some companies and institutions might delete references, pause partnerships, or distance themselves from figures under new scrutiny. Streaming services and labels could face pressure to reconsider catalogs and contracts. The corporate side of culture reacts fast when legal and reputational risks appear. Still, people should be careful about turning rumor into fact. Much of what's being said now comes from insiders, former staff, and retired investigators who are suddenly speaking. Their statements are compelling, but they are still allegations. Some voices might be looking for attention. Others may genuinely want truth. Both are possible at the same time. Even if the worst claims do not hold up, the mere presence of these accusations changes history's shape. The public will revisit old interviews, album covers, lyrics, and photos to look for new meaning. Every hint will be combed for hidden messages. Fans and critics will debate whether Tupac left trails to be discovered or whether people are simply seeing patterns that fit the story they want. One more idea to consider: the scale of what could be exposed. If there is truly a collection of recorded conversations, financial records, and other documents, their release would not only ruin careers, it would force institutions, media, and fans to confront how fame and money can hide dark corners. It would prompt a broader conversation about the ethics of power in music and entertainment. Right now, the scene looks like this. Legal actions are active, allies distance themselves, and certain gatekeepers act cautiously. Many former insiders are now hiring lawyers. The media runs with any credible tip. Investors and brands pay attention. People at the top of an industry that once felt untouchable now behave like people who might have something to lose. In the end, the biggest name in this story keeps coming up as the one who might change everything: Tupac Shakur. If he were alive and holding proof, the trouble wouldn't be a simple comeback, it would be a reckoning. People imagine him calmly watching decisions ripple through a world built around him. He might sit back and let the consequences unfold precisely, without haste. That vision is dramatic. It's also a reminder of how complicated truth can be. Legends grow around real events. Conspiracy mixes with reality. People who once seemed invulnerable can face new scrutiny. Whether the rumors become fact or fade like so many before, they already have an effect. They make fans, industry insiders, and the public ask questions they didn't ask before. So where does that leave us? It leaves us watching. Some will wait for proof. Others will dig through old material for hints. Many will debate and argue. But the moment has changed. The music world that shaped lives and culture now faces a wave of uncertainty. If any of these claims are true, the consequences will be seismic. If they're not, the chatter still forced a long overdue look at the relationships between fame, power, and truth. Either way, this story is about more than a single person or two. It's about a generation's trust in its leaders, the power of hidden records, and how long a truth can stay buried. And if Tupac is really holding the final chapter, then the last verse might not be a song at all. It might be a set of documents, a recording, or a testimony that forces everyone to read the past with new eyes.